This was Hong Kong's district council election in 2019. It was the first and only time the pan-Democrats took control with a decisive majority, winning about 80% of all seats. But there is no chance of a repeat victory for the opposition in upcoming polls scheduled for December 10, 2023. Under a new district council electoral system passed in Hong Kong's legislature in July 2023, all candidates must be extensively vetted by authorities. The scrutiny is meant to ensure the district councils align with the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong.
有區議員危害國家安全，鼓吹港獨，助長黑暴，反對香港國安法，肆意干擾同埋阻止特區政府施政。
Supporters say the changes are necessary to prevent the councils from falling into dysfunction and disarray.
Out of the 15 representatives in the Central and Western District, 12 left halfway through. That, in my mind, is the most irresponsible action any councillor can do. The rules and the regulations that led to the chaos must be changed.
But critics say the revamp has damaged the credibility of what used to be the city's most democratic election.
You're basically closing your ears and you're closing your eyes, and I think that's a shame and that the city ultimately suffers.
So what are the district councils? Why are they so important to the daily lives of Hong Kongers? And why did the government decide to overhaul the election process? To put the councils in context, Hong Kong's top government post, the chief executive, is selected by a committee of around 1,500 people. Under the city's unique governance system, there are two elections in which representatives are, to a certain degree, directly elected by the public. One of those polls is to select members of the Legislative Council, or LegCo. As Hong Kong's lawmakers, LegCo members are responsible for passing city budgets and laws, and scrutinizing the work of the government. The other poll is to elect district councillors. They deal with far more local matters. In the 2019 elections, 479 district councillor posts were up for grabs. In 2023, the council will have a total of 470 members. Unlike LegCo members, district councillors have limited power to approve government proposals and budgets, and mainly serve in an advisory role to the government. But they do have an important role dealing with bread and butter issues in their neighborhoods. They handle tasks such as reviewing bus routes, planning repairs in neighborhood parks, or even the distribution of care packages during a crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. When residents need help in their communities, their district councillors are often the first people they look for. Like many government bodies in Hong Kong, the district councils have undergone many changes since they were established. The first district council election took place in 1982, when about 45% of the councillors were ex officio, or members because they held other government positions. About 1/4 were appointed by the colonial governor of Hong Kong. The rest were directly elected by the public. The British colonial administrators later increased the number of directly elected seats in subsequent elections. The appointed seats were scrapped in 1994, only to be restored after Hong Kong was handed back to Chinese sovereignty in 1997. Then, in 2016, appointees were abolished once again. At this point, 94% of district councillors were directly elected. The remaining 6% was reserved for indigenous village representatives from Hong Kong's rural committees. Then, in 2019, anti-government protests shook the city. The last district council elections were held amid the protests in November of that year. The turnout rate was over 70%, the highest in history. And for the first time, opposition politicians won over 80% of the seats and control of 17 of the 18 district councils. The pro-establishment camp had previously secured the majority of seats in every district council election since 1997. But 2 years after the pan-Democrats' landslide result, the legislature passed a law requiring all councillors to take an oath of allegiance aligned with a national security law that the central government imposed on Hong Kong in 2020. As a result, more than 300 district councillors resigned or were disqualified. Some who took the oath had their statements challenged. Ahead of the December 2023 elections, 333 seats are still vacant. In May this year, Hong Kong's leader proposed a new system for district council elections. Chief Executive John Lee called for a massive cut in directly elected seats and for candidates to be vetted by authorities. Similar changes had already been implemented ahead of Legislative Council elections in 2021. In 2021, the percentage of directly elected LegCo seats was reduced by more than half. All candidates are required to undergo a new vetting process to ensure only patriots are able to run. The revamped LegCo elections in 2021 had one of the lowest voter turnouts in Hong Kong's history, and it left critics questioning whether LegCo had become a rubber-stamped body. Former Chief Executive Carrie Lam said there were multiple factors that affect the turnout rate, and a low voter turnout could indicate public satisfaction with good governance. The district councils are about to be reshaped in a similar manner. Councillor appointments will be brought back, while the number of directly elected members will drop from 452 to an all-time low of 88. That means the percentage of district council seats chosen by the public decreases from 94% to less than 19%. The number of seats reserved for indigenous villagers remains the same. Under the new electoral system, there are several procedures to fill the remaining 355 seats. Then, some will be chosen by 3 government-controlled committees, while the rest will be appointed by the chief executive. To understand what this could look like, let's take Wan Chai District as an example. There are about 78,000 eligible voters in Wan Chai. Under the old system, the district was divided into 13 constituencies, with each electing 1 councillor. Under the new system, the whole district will become a single constituency, where only 2 out of 10 councillors will be directly elected. John Lee said a merged constituency will allow the district councillors to better see the big picture as they look after the interests of local residents. But Southern District Councillor Paul Zimmerman says the changes make it much harder to ensure the concerns of all residents are heard.
Your councillor is going to be responsible for a much larger area, so the level of service that can be provided on the things that matter for people in the community, you know, where the minibus is not working, the road works, a new development project, you know, all of that. There's no way that the elected councillors can provide that.
And there are other new requirements for candidates. All of those who wish to qualify as candidates must secure 3 nominations from each of the 3 government-appointed committees, together with 50 constituent nominations. They also need to be vetted by a Candidate Eligibility Review Committee. Its members are appointed by the chief executive. Additionally, the chairperson of each council will no longer be elected by the councillors. Instead, district officers from the government will serve as chairs. Zimmerman says these changes undermine the last remaining democratic institution in Hong Kong that acts as a government advisory body.
We have 500 or so organizations that advise government, of which only the district councils were elected and the people can nominate their own representatives. You cut that off, you cut off the channel of communication, the channel of learning that is not going to make governance better.
Others welcome the changes. Central and Western District Councillor Jeremy Young says more elected seats do not necessarily mean better quality councillors.
Yes, there will be less number of directly elected members, but on the other side, there will be the same number of votes casted. Assuming the turnout rate is similar, every resident still have their vote to cast, right? So each directly elected member will become more representative compared to the past.
Young and some other councillors have argued that the district council system was broken. He said his former pan-Democrat colleagues were pushing politics-driven agendas in the council, rather than focusing on livelihood issues.
It was filibustering to the extreme. It was tabling agendas that were not approved, last-minute motions, not allowing government officials to enter the meeting room, and then not allowing them to leave the meeting room. It was crazy. It was like primary school kids having a fight. It's embarrassing.
Others say that 2019 district council meetings mostly focused on local issues.
If you go back to the minutes and you look at the minutes of all the meetings that were held, you can see that 90% of the discussion was on local issues. So to say, okay, because there were 10% of the time was spent on things that I did not want them to talk about. So that's the reason why you destroy a system where at least 90% of the time. So it's wrong, it doesn't reflect the truth. The truth is that the government is no longer willing to hear voices that have a different opinion.
The revamped election system has received unanimous support from pro-establishment parties. Other political parties like the Democratic Party, Hong Kong's largest opposition group, and Third Side, a centrist party, had voiced intent to join the revamped election, but prospective candidates from both parties failed to secure enough nominations from the committees. Some hopefuls say the bar is now much higher to secure nominations from the government-appointed committees. They also say it has become much harder for independent candidates to raise funds to run campaigns in a much larger constituency. Those, like Zimmerman, who oppose the changes, say their days as district councillors are numbered.
You've taken the powers away, the abilities away. I've no interest in it. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that it's still a district council. It ain't. You know, you've turned it into an appointed advisory body. I'm not going to sit there and help government pretend that things are the same.
The Legislative Council formed under the new system in 2021 has 89 pro-establishment lawmakers and just one who is considered to have a centrist stance. With none of their members successful in standing as candidates in the December 2023 District Council poll, Hong Kong's opposition groups now need to reassess how to move forward in the new normal of Hong Kong elections.